Good morning and welcome to another Star Wars Legion list building video. In today's video we're going to be building a rebel list back in my comfort zone around Han, Leia and Chewie. Here we have the iconic trio from the original trilogy. Would try and fit Luke in as well, but I think at that point you're looking at sort of 450 points before upgrades, so I think we'll start with just these three and then sort of add some core units, possibly a couple of vehicles and some other stuff in as well. First off, we're looking at the upgrades for Han Solo. So click on Han's card. He comes with a variety of good stuff. So low profile is really useful, especially with the way cover works now. So he'll very often be discarding 2 or 3 hits against him per turn, which is really nice. Gunslinger, obviously really powerful. He is only range 2, but you know that's workable. And with some other keywords which he gets later on, it can actually be very powerful. Sharpshooter 1's really nice, so going through light cover. Obviously, he struggles a lot more with heavy cover, but light cover's still pretty good. And he gets steady. So this lets him perform, after a standard move, it lets him perform a ranged attack. And obviously, with Gunslinger, he's actually getting 2 ranged attacks. He gets Uncanny Luck 3. Effectively, what this does is, with a white surging defense die, it just makes it marginally better than a red save. As long as you're going up against sort of a fairly small number of hits. If it starts to get much bigger than that, it obviously becomes a bit worse. Han's sort of offensive options. Brawl is terrible. 3 white dice with no keywords is dreadful. But his blaster pistol is very strong. 2 red dice with Pierce 2. So as long as you're getting both of those hits through, it's extremely good because you're pretty much guaranteed 2 wounds again, unless you're going against something with impervious or immune to pierce. Obviously, he does struggle a little bit with dealing with things in cover. So with a heavy cover, obviously that light cover is all right, but heavy cover can be more of a problem for him, especially when he's rolling such a small dice pool. You're basically relying on those high quality shots, just dealing both of those wounds, and then they won't be able to save them because it has Pierce 2. So what we're going to attach to Han, I think the obvious option straight away is to go to up close and personal. It is quite expensive at 8 points, but generating 2 dodge tokens with Han's Gunslinger is really powerful and will go to a long way to keeping him alive because he is only 6 health points. So yeah, that's something we need. I'm also going to be equipping, sort of alongside that, Vigilance. I think there are a number of good options with Han, but we do have Leia to pick up some of the sort of more broad army buffing command slots. So yeah, just Han to keep himself alive, or other units around him who will be giving dodge tokens too. Moving across to Leia, she actually fairly similar profile to Han in terms of, like, you know, the 6 health and the 2 courage. 2 courage on loads of rebel commanders really isn't great. That courage 3 would go a long way, but then obviously they probably have to be more expensive, so yeah, it's okay. She comes with some take cover 2, which is nice, and we're going to be buffing that up later. Inspire 2, also nice, especially with suppression in rebel lists. If you're planning a gun line or something, losing an action can be really brutal if you're not able to get into range. Nimble, really good. She'll most of the time we'll try and keep a dodge token on her, so yeah, being able to use that multiple times a turn is really nice. And Sharpshooter 2 is nice. It lets her get good value from her shot if she decides to shoot. But yeah, not all the time, especially only at range 1 to 2, and with not quite as high quality a dice pool as Han. So first and foremost, we're going to be taking improvised orders. I think this is just quite a nice utility one to have. Lets you sort of have more control over your stack. And if you do draw the wrong unit at the wrong time, lets you shuffle it back in, and then you can have a bit more control over it. The one that I have always attached to Leia every time I've used her is going to be Portable Scanner. Obviously, the take cover stacks, so this takes her to take cover 3, letting her deal 3 dodge tokens out with 1 action, which is really powerful. And finally, this is maybe a little bit of a luxury, but I think still pretty good, is giving her Lead by Example. So this gives her effectively Inspire 4, so she gets to remove 4 suppression from units around her when she activates, which could be really nice to getting you back some of those potential lost actions. Finally, we got Chewbacca. The key bit for Chewie here is his Enrage, which we're going to be hoping to make use of, and his Guardian and Teamwork, all of which have really good synergy with what we're trying to do here. As you can probably guess, a lot of what Chewie's going to be doing is taking some hits away from the two other units who have significantly lower health pools. He also gets Teamwork Han Solo, which is really nice. Anytime Han gets a aim or a dodge, Chewie gets one of the same kind. And we're hoping with this list to be able to generate quite a few dodge tokens. Specifically, if Leia was to give out 3 dodge tokens with her take cover ability, if one went to Han, that would again give one to Chewie, and if she gave one to Chewie, that would also give one to Han. That's sort of 4 dodge tokens right away, and then she can give one to herself, so we're up to 5. And then, obviously, if Han makes his up close and personal attacks, you could be looking at sort of 8 or 9 dodge tokens, effectively using only like 1 actual action, which could be really good. But for Chewie, we're going to be taking Tenacity, which is not in this stack, it's in the other one. Tenacity is really good on Chewie. He has such a high health pool, and you know, when he is enraged, if he's charging in with Tenacity, that effectively gives him 5 red dice with Surge to crit, which is actually a really solid dice pool, and could really do some damage. And with Enrage 4, he's still going to have 5 wounds left over when he's making his attack, so that could be really powerful. For his equipment slot, I think there's a couple of options. You could definitely take targeting scopes. I'm not sure if we'll have the points level over targeting scopes, and it may be a little bit of overkill, but I think definitely a good option for Chewie. For now, I'm just going to leave this blank, and we'll come back and see if we've got any points left at the end. In terms of our core units, there's a couple of good options here. I say good. Rebel core, not the strongest. It's fine, but not the strongest. I think personally the Rebel veterans are the most solid and kind of suit what we're going for here. So I'm going to take 1 unit of Rebel veterans, and sort of to go with them, I'm going to take another unit of medium blaster troopers. Now, one thing we are going to struggle with here is because we're going to be running relatively high activation count, probably 10 or 11, we will struggle a little bit with order control. So to help combat that, and because the Rebel veterans come with Defend 1, so after they're given an order, they gain a dodge token, so getting an order on them is really good. In addition to that, they get Coordinate Emplacement Trooper, which lets them pass an order on to an emplacement trooper at range 1, so that will be hopefully going to this guy here, which again, if we're able to get an order on those veterans, gives us just so much more order control further on into the turn. So to help with that, I'm going to give them the comms tech, and I'm going to give them, I guess where this is going, HQ uplink. That should just really help keep things in control and let them activate when we want to. Also, because our medium blaster trooper comes with fire support, that can be really nice just to have that face-up order token on them, because occasionally that's really going to pay off, getting those extra 4 black dice with critical 2 and surge to hit can be really powerful. So yeah, I'll put that in, and I'm also going to be giving them Link Targeting Array, because again, they should be getting an order, which gives them a free aim token. The other thing I've always liked to put on my Rebel veterans is Recon Intel. Just getting that extra move forward and then getting the medium blaster trooper to move further forward than that can be really good. And it just gets those medium blaster troopers, because they are a little bit slow. They're only speed 1, although obviously they have the notch base. They do move relatively far. Really nice just for getting them into position early in the game. And then you can just set up, go on standby maybe for your Sentinel and stuff like that. For now, we'll leave this blank. I think there's a possibility for something like situational awareness, or maybe even offensive push. The advantage with offensive push is because it's exhaustible, as is HQ uplink. If we were to use a recover action, we'd be able to recover both of those exhaustible upgrades, which would make sort of that activation a bit more efficient. For now, I'm going to add 2 of each of these in, just to get our sort of core count up nice and high. And again, there's good synergy between these 2 units, so hopefully they'll be able to keep each other alive and keep those nice order tokens going between them. The next thing we're going to add is a little bit of a rogue one, and I can't confess I've ever used this unit, so yeah, we'll have to see how this one goes. But we're going to be adding in the AA5 Speeder Truck. Now, this is a very different type of Rebel unit. It's not something that you'd necessarily see included in every list. I do have one. I got one for dead cheap on Darkstar a while ago, or wherever it was. So, yeah, looking forward to using this one. It's Crucially, it's got armor and a reasonable health pool, so 8, and then white surging defense die, which is okay. We are going to be buffing that up later, giving it some a bit more staying power. I think one of the interesting parts about the speeder truck is it doesn't by default come with any weapons, so it is just intended as a bit of a transport. You can transport 1 unit enclosed, so it won't take any wounds if they're shot at or if the AA5 takes any wounds. It does have a weak point 2 of rear, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. You can, most of the time, you'd hope to be able to keep, especially with the reposition keyword, that sort of rear arc out of your opponent's fire. There are so many different options that you can put on the AA5 speed truck, it's quite difficult to know which ones are best. The outer rim speed jockey is interesting, but you're looking for crits anyway, so cover doesn't actually help that much. Reckless driver feels like, quite an interesting one. It's not the style of truck I'm going to be going for, but it is definitely an interesting thing to have. Hotshot pilot's nice if you're playing more of a shooting build, but I think for me, for the list we're planning to build here, I'm seeing the AA5 as more of firstly a movable piece of cover, which is quite nice, and also just as something to buff up our units and keep them alive. So I'm giving them Shriv Surgav, which gives a dodge token each turn and an optional suppression. Then there are tons of options here as well. Backwell Medic to help heal up your guys, maybe give them some suppression, but yeah, that should be okay. The next option is the refurbished Gonk Droid, which gives you shielded 2. Now, I didn't realise quite how shielded worked. I've only ever played Droidicas, and I think I just mentally blocked that in my mind. But effectively, they just let you automatically block a shot. And if you've got shielded 2, you can block 2 of those, and then you can have a go at regenerating them each turn. So putting this guy in, it should give us some real solidity, actually, in the list, and yeah, help that truck live a lot longer. And then Unorthodox Tactician, even though it's been nerfed, so it's now significantly more expensive than it used to be. Effectively, on average, you give out about 2 aim tokens per turn, and it can give an aim token to itself. So that's really nice. If I am going to put a gun on this one, but if you want to buff up that shooting attack that it's making, that could be really powerful. The other thing it could be useful for is putting the aim token on either Han or Chewie, because they have teamwork. If you put an aim token on one of them, the other one will get it as well. And while they're not quite as valuable on Han because he has red surging defense dice, so there's only 1 blank face on that dice, it is still a really powerful thing to have. But mainly looking at Chewbacca, especially on his bowcaster, because with those white and those 2 red, you might be getting like a couple of misses, so being able to re-roll those would be really nice. So Unorthodox Tacticians going in. In terms of the equipable upgrades, I am going to be going for the quad laser. It is slightly shorter range, which isn't ideal, but I am seeing the AA5 coming being at the front and being more of a blocker, so not just sitting at the back and shooting. And that impact 2 gives us actually some really nice counters to some armor stuff, which currently we don't have that much that's able to deal with armor. And especially if it's getting fire supported by the medium blaster trooper, because that would give the whole pool surge to hit. This isn't specifically against armor, and it gives it critical 2, along with the impact 2 keyword on the quad laser. You would actually be able to get quite a few hits through with that sort of 10 black dice pool with critical 2, impact 2, and surge to hit. We'll leave that as it is for now. It is quite expensive at 140 points, but every turn it should be dealing out a bunch of tokens, doing a bit of shooting, just keeping my guys alive. And it also enables us to put a unit in there. And the unit we're going to be putting in there is one of my beloved Ewok units, specifically the Ewok skirmishers. Now, I'm not sure I fully understood the rules for disembarking, but as far as I can tell, it's once the unit is embarked, if it wants to disembark, you put the base down on the edge of the vehicle base, and then you make a speed 1 move, and then you have an additional action after that. What we're going to do is we're going to give them Call to Arms, which gives them 1 suppression token, and the unit gains charge until the end of the round. Now, I'm assuming this would mean that you could make that speed 1 move to disembark, and then with your second move, you could then charge into combat. And I'm also going to be equipping the Axe Ewok for that red dice with the Pierce 1 and Impact 1. So this is more of a kamikaze unit than anything else. Like, I'm not expecting them to do a lot, but popping them in the speeder truck gives them, the potential for that 6 black, 1 red with Pierce 1 on it, which could be a really sort of nice surprise if the units get too close to the AA5. Final unit we're going to be putting in is just going to be a unit of rebel troopers, and the job of this unit is going to be to keep the AA5 alive as far as possible. So they'll be sticking close to it with the astromech droid, which seems really nice here, just adding 2 additional wounds effectively to the speeder truck for 8 points seems really powerful. I'm not expecting this unit to do a lot, maybe like capping an objective in the late game, but yeah, not too much else. We've got a few points left over, so I'm just going to go back and equip a few upgrades. Got a choice here between the situational awareness on the veterans or offensive push for me. There are a couple of other options, but I think in this case, because of the synergy with the exhaustible upgrade on HQ uplink as well, this seems like a really powerful combination, and I'll add that to the other unit as well. Got 6 points left, so not completely sure what I'm going to do with this. We could just go in sort of slightly light on our bid, but I feel like we should probably equip something on Chewbacca. Again, there's a couple of good options, so could put situational awareness on him because he'll have quite a few dodge tokens on him, and being able to dodge those critical hits could be really nice. The other option is, again, offensive push, which could be really nice, giving, again, him and Han 1 dodge token, or could put targeting scopes, but I feel like targeting scopes might be slight overkill for Chewie. I don't know how often you'll be needing to re-roll 3 dice, although I could definitely see that being nice with his bowcaster especially. I think in this case, because we're currently possibly lacking a little bit of damage output, we have kind of the defensive side sorted. I'm just going to put offensive push on him just for that sort of that aim token, which you could use in conjunction with maybe charging in and doing some damage to your opponent's units. Cool. So that's all the units. As I say, the hope is that the speed between the speeder truck and Leia, we should have enough sort of like solidity in terms of like dodge token generation, and then with the unorthodox tactician and some offensive pushes on Chewie and the veterans, we should be able to actually maybe put out some decent damage in return. And then we got the skirmishers waiting in the speeder truck in case they are required. Now, command cards is a little bit interesting. There's obviously loads of options with my 3 heroes in there. I think one of the strengths of Han, he's not the strongest right now, but one of the strengths of Han is his command cards. So I am going to put in Sorry About the Mess just for that automatic go first, and can be really useful if Han's got himself into a bit of a tricky situation and you need to get yourself out of there. The choice is then between, obviously, Common Cause, not super relevant here because we don't have Luke, so Coordinated Bombardment or Sabotage Communications. I think this one's really interesting, depending on if you think you might be coming up against some armies that give out loads of orders with their command cards, so maybe like the 501st or something, if they have like We're Not Programmed from Rex or whatever. I think here though, Leia with her 3 lots of 2 red dice, and they will come with Surge to Crit because she has Surge to Crit, would be really nice. So some early game, maybe chip damage, we'll put in Coordinated Bombardment. In terms of the next orders, No Time for Sorrows I think is one of Leia's best command cards. Like that speed 1 move can be really nice. Like you can use it to just move out of engagement with a trooper, with an enemy trooper if you've got stuck. If you've got a unit in melee, you don't want to be there. The choice is between Brains and Brawn or Reckless Diversion. I think Reckless Diversion is a really interesting card and can sometimes force your opponent into sort of some quite difficult decisions, or maybe not even being able to attack with a unit they'd really like to. Brains and Brawn obviously has that advantage of effectively giving like Chewie a free attack once per game. But I'm going to put in Reckless Diversion here. And finally, we come on to 3 pips. There are some decent options here. Covering Fire could be really nice just for dodge token generation. Again, but I feel like that might almost might be overkill because we have the ability to generate so many dodge tokens that it might not be required. Change of plans obviously is really interesting to mess with your opponent. Even if you're running Han, like they might just be in fear of you dropping this at a crucial time. So I'm going to put that one in. And I'm going to put in Notorious Scoundrels as well. Just even though it only does generate 2 orders, being able to return 1, especially after you've used Change of Plans potentially, because that would mean you wouldn't have to play standing orders. So we are going to put in Notorious Scoundrels. Cool. So yeah, that's the list. I'm Actually, by the time this goes out, I may have used a variation of this list in a game, but we'll have to see how we go. I've not used it yet, and I'm really looking forward to getting this one on the board. The fact that you can squeeze in sort of these three heroes who have quite good synergy for, I think, just over 300 points is quite nice. Obviously, it is quite an investment in the army. You do only have 10 activations, but we've got some nice solid core units. The speeder truck should go a long way to keeping my units alive. And yeah, looking forward to sort of sprinting those skirmishers out the speeder truck and taking someone by surprise. Cool. If you have any thoughts on this, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, looking forward to see you for the next video.